So without further ado, I'm going to get started. I'm going to lay out some basic information and ground rules related to the webinar this evening. And first of all, welcome to Duke. We are so thrilled that you are a part of this community. We're hoping to give you as much information as possible tonight. If we don't get your questions answered this evening, feel free to reach out. I'm going to put some contact information up towards the end, but we are so excited that you're here and we're here to help. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we mentioned this evening is if you need assistance, please let us know. And we are committed to ensuring that all of this is available and accessible to you. We are also ensuring that this session is being recorded. So if you have to step away, if your internet connection breaks for a moment, don't worry. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel for you to access later. And so without further ado, today's program, as I mentioned, this is the financial aid session. My name is Miranda McCall. I am the Director and Associate Vice Provost of our aid program here for undergraduates. And I'm going to spend some time talking with you about both who we are, what we're committed to doing, how to use your aid. We're going to start by talking about our commitment. Duke's commitment to financial aid, this year alone, this is in 23-24, we're expecting that Duke itself is investing more than 152 million in the aid program. We've invested over 100 or 1.5 billion over the last 10 years in undergraduates. And those are big numbers. But what really is going to begin to matter isn't what we're spending as an institution, but how you access the resources that we have to offer here. And so let's talk a little bit about what we'll be going over tonight. I'm going to start talking about aid offers, what's in them, the types of aid that you're seeing, and how to get to your bottom line about what Duke will cost. Then we're going to talk about how to use and maximize your aid. There are probably some things that you may not realize that we offer. We want to make sure that those are very clear, how to maximize your opportunity. I'm going to go over some common questions before we open up the Q&A. I'll also be talking about next steps in financing. Um, and there's also a little plug in here for some hot topics. This has been an unusual time in the aid world. You might have been hearing about concerns with the FAFSA application. I'll be talking about those and where those stand, how that affects your Duke aid. And then we're going to be opening it up to a live Q&A. So let's start with talking about the aid offer itself. How do we do it? If you haven't applied yet, how can you get started? But let's think through our guiding principles. So for U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens, and I will go ahead and be very upfront. This presentation, we're going to be focusing on U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens. So if you're an international student, there are other programs available that will focus specifically on international student aid and international student support. Everything in the scope of this particular presentation is going to be focusing on our domestic student population of eligible citizens, of U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens. So as we think about this, we are committed that your applying for financial aid did not disadvantage you in the admissions process in any way. A lot of times we'll hear from students, you know what, I didn't apply for aid prior to being admitted because I was afraid it might hurt my chances. And if you are a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, it has no impact on your admission to Duke. It does not disadvantage you in the aid application process. And we do need-based aid at Duke. And so the aid that we are offering you at the time of admission, that is based on your financial circumstances solely. We don't consider other circumstances. We know that you are often the very best of the best. You've been admitted to Duke. You have fantastic backgrounds and amazing things that have made you a part of this community. But when we think about need-based aid, we're considering things like income and assets and the information you put on your aid application, rather than all of the things that you put on your admissions application that are merit-based, that are part of the reason that you've been invited to join our community. So this will focus on need-based aid and the way to access it. And some of the things that we want to ensure that you know going into this is understanding the aid that you've been offered. You've probably heard, and you may feel as you might be comparing Duke to other institutions or aid offers to come if you haven't received those from other institutions yet. that every aid offer might look a little bit different. And sometimes you're just trying to get to your bottom line. How much is it going to cost me to go to school? We're committed to making sure that you understand those processes. And so the aid offer that you receive is going to include something on it that says estimate of your bill. So if you have standard charges for Duke, so it doesn't include if you got a parking pass or you go to Duke stores and you want to, buy every T-shirt, that is not included in the estimate of your bill. But we do think we have pretty good T-shirts. But the estimate of your bill is the basic costs of attending Duke, and so we want you to know that after aid, here's what you would actually see on a bill. And so we're estimating that to you to give you a ballpark of what you'll actually pay to attend. And then there's something on your aid offer called a net price. And the Department of Education wants us to put this out there for all students. And so you should be seeing this on every aid offer that you're receiving. If you're laying them down next to one another over the course of the next few weeks, even if the school hasn't estimated your bill for you, they may have given you something called your net price. And the difference in those can at least give you a little bit of a gauge of how the cost compares across schools. But we're really going to be looking at the estimate of your bill because that's the part that you need to know. How much is Duke really going to cost? That's listed for you along with your total grants and scholarships. The bottom of your aid offer will also list information that has some important facts. We'll be covering some of those in our presentation today, but we do want to make sure that you've read, I think there are 6 facts. We want to make sure that you fully understand those as you go through so that you can anticipate what the next 4 years is going to look like for you. But let's talk a little bit about aid in the first place. One of the big questions that we get is, how did you determine aid? How do we do this as a process? This is how we do it at Duke. First of all, we think about what are the total costs for going to college? So that net price that we're talking about, not all, there's a difference. It's not just what we bill you. We think when we are trying to fund students for financial aid, what we bill, but we also think about things like books, travel to and from campus, spending money, all of that. We take that total cost that it could potentially cost you at Duke, even budgeting for your spending money. And then we take your aid application. And then based on the information from your aid application, we figure out the amount that you as a student and family would need to pay towards those costs. Then we'll offer you, in many cases, a loan and some work study to help cover some of the cost as well. Depending on your income, you may not see a loan in the aid offer, but for many of you, you will. We'll never offer more than $5,000 to help cover your costs at Duke. Doesn't mean you can't borrow more than that, and we'll talk about borrowing options in a little while. But we won't use that saying we're meeting your financial need. So you would see at max a $5,000 loan, and then the majority of what we're issuing is in grant assistance. And so if you received a grant aid offer, we'll talk about what that means and what it means in the wake of probably not having your FAFSA information yet to make sure that that's really clear for you. But this is how we construct an aid offer. We take our total costs, the amount that a family would contribute, and then we begin putting together the other types of aid that we can use to help make up that difference. The next big question is always, yes, but how did you decide what we could pay? And so there are 2 parts of that. You'll notice I mentioned that we include in that total how much you might need for things like spending money. We have something called a fixed student contribution, the amount that students just need to keep in mind that they would need just for day-to-day incidental expenses and things like that. That's a fixed amount that we put in there that a student should keep in mind as you come. But when it comes to really how much you're going to pay towards Duke, that's based, if you're a dependent student, on parent information. And that's the information you gave us. Most of you gave us a copy of your tax returns and you filled out the CSS profile. And when we look at that, we take into consideration already things like, well, how many siblings might you have that are going to college at the same time? And for those siblings, it's students who are in 4-year undergraduate programs. So we're only considering it if you have siblings that are in graduate school or professional schools. That's not taken into consideration. It's siblings in other 4-year undergraduate programs at the same time. If you're a dependent student that parents might be funding at the same time. We have a standard deduction, just like your taxes have a standard deduction. We have a standard deduction that we provide for household expenses that is adjusted based on where you live in the country. And we also consider how much you're paying in taxes. There are a lot of things that we actually take into consideration as we put together your aid offer, but these are some things that are already factored in. Another big question that we get is people wonder, what about my retirement fund? I've been saving in a 401k or an IRA. We ignore those entirely when we put together your aid offer. So if you've already set aside funds and they're sitting in those types of investments, 401k, 403b, IRAs, official retirement fund vehicles, those are ignored in the way that we view um, how much you might be thinking from assets you would have to contribute. Those are protected. And so from our information we put together using the CSS profile, how much you might be paying towards your bill. But some of you who are online tonight may be thinking, I did not complete all of the information prior to learning that I was admitted to Duke, and that's okay. It is not too late to apply for aid. Right now, we are using the CSS profile application. And the CSS profile application, we're going to ask for your FAFSA later. I told you we'll be talking about some of these FAFSA complications in just a second. But your aid offers are going to be based on the CSS profile. So if you haven't filed one and you would like to, it's not too late to do that. You can have the results sent to Duke. We're happy to process that. We're probably also going to ask for your tax information as well. You'll send that to the same place that collects your CSS profile. It's called the iDoc service. It's through the College Board. It's a secure upload link. Once we get your profile, you'll get a special link, give us your tax information. Some of you might have already been asked for tax information and are waiting to hear the results of your aid application. Go check your portal. If you look there, there are items outstanding for financial aid. It just means we need some additional tax documents from you. Please give those to us and we are happy to give your aid application. One of the things is we can do this at any time. We want you to know how much Duke is going to cost as soon as we can get that information to you. But what if the bottom falls out later? What if you didn't apply for aid this year? Something changes in a future year. You can apply for aid at any time. So it's not a hard and fast deadline. If you decide you want to apply for aid in October, if you decide you want to apply for aid in your junior year, if you're a US citizen or a domestic student, we will always process your aid application. For those of you who are doing this on an annual basis, we do collect the information every year. So these are not 4-year aid offers. Every year, just like you file your taxes, you'll file a new aid application. Your aid can vary as your income goes up or down. So it responds each year as we get updated tax information from you. So what about the FAFSA? So this is pretty big topic in higher education. And I want to talk about this year and kind of what's making it different than what you would see in a normal year. In a typical year, the aid offer you'd have in your hand, it would list all the sources of your aid. It would say, here's how much you're getting from federal, this is how much you're getting from the state, this is how much you're getting from Duke, and you would get all of that at the same time. Schools, including Duke, we don't have all of the FAFSAs yet. There is a backlog in processing at the Department of Education. They've also let us know there are some errors in the way they've calculated the FAFSA results. And so even the FAFSAs we've received can't be fully processed yet. And so our aid, because we collected tax information from the majority of students, we're able to determine what you would qualify for in total. So if you received an aid offer and it says you have a grant and scholarship total, that grant and scholarship total is inclusive of anything that you might receive on the FAFSA, plus our aid as well. So that line is just one line, but that's for all of your aid eligibility, even once we get the FAFSA results. Once we get the FAFSAs later this summer, once we're confident that the results are accurate from the FAFSA, if we'll then send you an updated aid offer before the bills, and we'll say, okay, so here's how much of that total is coming from the various sources. And we'll break it down for you, but the total amount will remain the same. And so you can look at what you have on your aid offer now and enroll with confidence, knowing, okay, here's how much grant assistance I have going. That estimate of your bill, the FAFSA results aren't going to change that. In fact, if you file the FAFSA later and you don't qualify for anything, there are no federal grants or no state grants coming, you're still going to get that level of aid and we'll fund it as an institution. So that's something that you can rely on when you think about how much aid you have to come to Duke. If you received an offer, maybe it just listed loans and work study. That means when we looked at your CSS profile, you didn't qualify for grant assistance from Duke based on what we assessed. And so when we get the FAFSA results, what we'll be able to do for you is tell you, here's the type of loan that you can qualify for. Here's the type of work study that you'll be able to receive. And then, of course, outside scholarships, you can certainly apply those towards your bill as well. But there won't be institutional aid. And we're not aware or can't rely on federal results only for your federal aid eligibility. If at some point the FAFSA says that you qualify for federal aid, you won't qualify for Duke aid, but of course we'll apply anything coming from other sources towards your costs if you don't see a grant scholarship offer there now. So I promise that in addition to talking about the aid process, what you're looking at on your aid offer, how can we make the most of this aid? And I want you to know what Duke has to offer and what you can expect over the course of the next 4 years. The first thing that we like to highlight is there is no place on Duke's campus where a student who's receiving need-based financial aid from us. So if you've got a grant and scholarship offer, you can live anywhere on campus any 4 years. And if it costs more, maybe you are able to get a single room. Maybe you're living in one of the apartments on campus, that's still part of our campus housing in your senior year that costs more than typical housing. That's okay. Your Duke aid is going to adjust to cover that cost. So every place is available to you. That's not true on all campuses, and it's something that we really are committed to. So if you've got a need-based offer from Duke and you're receiving grant scholarship totals, you can live anywhere, and that's something that we're going to support. The other thing that's important to know about assistance at Duke, you'll notice when we provide our aid offers, we list the cost of attendance, and health insurance isn't on there, and that's on purpose. There are no students receiving need-based aid at Duke who should be concerned about the cost of health insurance. Every student is required to have health insurance. Most of our students are insured already. So you may have, if you're a dependent student, you may already be insured through a parent, in which case you can just waive the charge. You give us proof of your health insurance coverage. There's no charge for that health insurance. For some of you who've received a grant scholarship total, you may be in a situation where maybe your health insurance doesn't transfer to North Carolina and you don't have adequate insurance in Durham. That's okay. Or maybe you don't have health insurance at all. You can indicate that. You can show your current coverage or your lack thereof. And if you are required to purchase health insurance at Duke and you can't be waived under a parent, we will cover that charge for you. So there's no expense for that. Again, something to be aware of as you're comparing aid offers from other institutions, you want to make sure that this is something that you're considering. A lot of people talk about what are the hidden costs of college. And one of the things that we've tried very hard to do is eliminate surprise and hidden costs. And so that's why we're saying there's not a surprise cost about what your housing is going to be at Duke if you're on need-based financial aid. It's not a surprise about a health insurance cost. You have a way to make sure that that is either waived or covered for you. One of the other hidden costs that we want to bring up is course fees. Sometimes you'll sign up for a class and they'll say, yes, and you have to pay an extra fee because this is a picture of a student. We actually have a class here at Duke that goes to Hawaii over spring break and samples volcano lava. And if you sign up for this class and you are required to go, as all the students in the class are, and you're on need-based financial aid, we cover your travel costs in order to go. If you sign up for a music course and you're required to rent a cello, that's a course fee. And if you want to learn to play the cello, financial aid will cover that cost for you. Anything that is billed as a result of signing up for a class is a course fee, and we cover those course costs for you. So that's something to consider as well as you're comparing aid offers. One of the other things that we have, and this is regardless of whether or not you're receiving grant assistance from us, even if you're just considering how do I finance Duke, and you've been offered a loan or work study, you have a financial aid counselor. That team of people, if you joined us early enough and you saw them waving at the camera, they're here, they're in the Q&A right now, and we're here for you. And we're here for you all 4 years. This is not just for when you are coming to Duke. You're going to be assigned a permanent financial aid counselor once you enroll. And that counselor is going to be with you over time. They're going to know you. They'll know your family. They'll know your stories. I know I can't see my colleagues right now, but I think they are nodding behind the scenes. We get to know you. Duke is not a huge place. And a lot of times you may call a place and feel like you are anonymous. At Duke, you aren't. We get to know you, we get to know your stories, and we get to know you over the course of 4 years. You're part of a community, and we are part of that community for you. We look forward to assisting you. And even if we don't know the answers, maybe you're asking a question that's outside of financial aid. We're also committed to making sure we get you to the right spot to help answer your questions as well. We're part of a holistic network of support. You'll notice there are a series of webinars coming up for you to talk about things that are outside of the aid office, and we're a community with those folks too. And so if you've got questions, please don't hesitate to ask. It's what we're here for. One of the other things that we offer, this is regardless of whether or not you're receiving aid, is we also have dedicated folks in a personal finance office. We have one person individually who is overseeing our personal finance programming. And what she's able to do is host regular sessions, and this works for current Duke students. We even assist alumni who are thinking about it's not just about how are you financing the next 4 years. Our goal is that as a student, as you come through, you're learning how to be financially savvy, not just on how to use your aid at Duke and not just on how to navigate your finances while you're here, but how are you setting yourself up for your life after Duke? We're committed to your success. And so there are ways that you can begin signing up. Some of you will be very new to finance. And so all of this will be information that you need. For others, you're interested in how do I begin thinking about investing? How do I set up a solid financial future? All of that is available through courses and workshops that we offer. We also have dedicated loan counselors. So if you're thinking about how do I finance this? So maybe the estimate of your bill is something that you're thinking, I need to break this up and think about long-term financing options. We also have folks who are devoted to that. We have a section of our website specifically devoted to helping you compare loan options within the educational lender market. We have a list of recommended lenders that we work with closely, not because we have any affiliation with them as an institution, but because our students have told us that their customer service is what it needs to be. We know that they are responsible in providing information to students, and that they are flexible in their payments and have reasonable rates. And so all of these are services that we offer regardless of the level of aid you're receiving. Let's go over a few common questions. Again, I am going to be opening it up for Q&A, but I want to cover a few topics that tend to come up most frequently before we get started. This is an interesting year for us. We get questions a lot about merit scholarships and need-based aid. Duke is very devoted to our need-based aid program. And you'll notice that among most of the colleges in our peer groups, there aren't a lot of merit scholarships offered. And so as a new student, we are offering need-based aid. Every student should base their decision to attend financially on the need-based aid offer you have received from our office. So there are no merit scholarships that will be issued prior to your decision to attend Duke. And for those of you who enroll, we hope it's all of you that are on this call, there are merit scholarships available later, but if you're a need-based aid recipient, that may or may not change your aid offer. If you're receiving a high level of aid, what it will likely do is put you into a leadership program. We'll give you a great cohort of students, though we have lots of good cohorts of students and programming available to all of our students. If you're receiving some limited aid, it may provide some assistance for you through merit scholarship, but we don't name those scholarships prior to your decision to attend. So when you're thinking about, is Duke the right fit for me? We want you to be thinking about this in terms of, is the experience of Duke the right place for me to attend without regard to thinking that there are merit scholarships down the line. We're doing need-based aid offers to our admitted students, and your decision to attend should be solely based on those need-based aid offers. We do have something that for those of you who are joining us who are from the Carolinas, we do want to talk about that. Last summer, we announced our new initiative to the Carolinas, which students whose total income, so your pre-tax income for your family is $150,000 below, receive a full tuition grant from Duke. If your income pre-tax, your total income is $65,000 or below, the grant is equal to basically our build costs with a little additional a little additional assistance for those startup costs, things like books and spending money that we mentioned, things like that. So that is fully covered for our students from the Carolinas. We based those offers, so some of you will have seen that in your initial aid offer. So if you told us that your legal residence was North Carolina on the CSS profile, we use the income information that we have to provide those on the offer. So if you qualified, you would see that if you received a total grant and scholarship offer. One thing that is important to mention that we can't always know easily from the CSS profile is active duty military. Active duty military stationed in North Carolina also qualify for these benefits. So if you are in the eligible ranges for income, we may not have been able to tell that depending on your legal residence. You can let us know. We can collect a copy of the orders saying that you are stationed in the Carolinas, and then we can update your aid offer if that wasn't something that was included initially, because we wouldn't necessarily know that from the CSS legal residence state when you applied. Another top question that we receive is, how do I find external scholarships? So we have a few recommendations. I will say the most success we see from students is from organizations they already have an affiliation with. That might be someone, that might be um, a community organization in your town you may have volunteered for, you may work with. There are national search engines. You're probably already very familiar with these. We encourage you to use them. We also keep a list on our website of organizations that have reached out to us to say that they're particularly interested in Duke students and hope that we will publish their scholarship opportunities. You can find that on our website under types of aid. And it's a Google Doc. We just keep it updated as those opportunities come to us. But by and large, when you're applying to national scholarships, there's a large pool. The success rate we see with students applying to places where they already have an affiliation is actually quite a bit higher. And so we would encourage you to also look at your local community resources as you think about scholarship opportunities. But the question that follows this is okay, so I received a total grant and scholarship offer from Duke. If I get an outside scholarship, does it affect that aid? And the answer is yes, it does. And so I want to tell you how that's going to interact with the total grant and scholarship offer that you received. So you saw this earlier about how we put together the aid award. And so the first thing that happens is when we find out you're receiving additional aid from outside of Duke, is it replaces the loan and work study in the aid offer. Remember how I mentioned that? So if you've got a grant scholarship, if you go to that options to pay your net price, you might see either a work study offer or a work study and a loan offer down there. The first thing we're going to do is we'll replace that amount with anything that you receive. Once that has been filled with the external scholarship, anything beyond that amount is going to reduce the total grant and scholarship aid. So it'll just replace, it'll be part of those sources of aid when we do your final aid offer that you receive, but it's not going to reduce the amount that you would be expected to pay on your bill after we have replaced that initial loan and work study offer that we provided you in your initial aid offer. The exception to this is tuition benefits. Some of you told us on the CSS profile you're receiving tuition benefits. If that's the case, that replaces Duke Grant Aid dollar for dollar. So if you didn't let us know on the CSS profile that you were expecting those benefits, if you'll let us know, that will be part of that total grants and scholarships that you would be receiving and applying towards your bill, but it would not be in addition to what you're receiving from Duke. Another common question and thing that this is one of those 6 facts at the bottom of your aid offer. If you have a sibling who is attending college at the same time, it reduces the amount that you pay for Duke, and we've already taken into consideration. So if you told us, yes, I have a sibling, and they are 20, they're a little bit older than me, they're in college at the same time, the amount you're expected to pay, there's a 40% discount. If you have 2 students in college at the same time, and a further discount if you have 3. There's more discounts depending on the number of students that you have in school, but usually 2 to 3 siblings is the most common that we see, and that's already been factored into your aid offer. But we want you to be aware that this can change because you reapply for aid every year. So when a sibling graduates, the discount no longer applies. When a sibling, maybe you're the first going to college in your family, but you've got a sibling that's going to be going to college a year or 2 after you and will be in college at the same time, you can look forward to a discount in the year that they begin to come to college. So Each year, we reassess your family circumstances, and that discount can either be added or maybe subtracted depending on how many students are in college at once. Another big thing to mention is appeals. You might say, okay, I received this aid offer, but one of the things that you may not know is, and then fill in the blank, right? There are always things that we may not know about your circumstances. One of the most common things that we see is we use 2022 tax data to do this aid offer for you in most cases. And so that's the year, that's a couple of years ago now. Since then, you filed your 2023 returns or are on your way to filing your 2023 returns. If your income is lower on that return and you would like us to use that instead, if you've had it, and we would only encourage you to do if it's significant change, but if you have a significant difference from one year to the other, you can give us your 2023 information and we can use that for your aid offer instead. But there's a whole host of things that we may be able to consider, and we'd like you to go to our special circumstances page on our website. You can also just enter into your search engine, special circumstances, Duke Financial Aid. It will get you to our page. There's a form that you can fill out. It's an electronic form. You can upload information to it right inside the form. That'll come to us, and we can determine whether or not we can help. We also pre-list some of the circumstances we can consider and some that we can't to help you know whether or not is this something that I might be able to do on the basis of an appeal? We're not able to take appeals based on anything other than financial circumstances. So if you missed us earlier, I mentioned this is a need-based financial aid office. And so we're not able to accept appeals on the basis of any merit information or things that may have been impacting you, but not in the financial realm. We really are looking for things that are changes in your financial circumstances in order to update your aid offer. But we would encourage you to take a look if you think that you may have been affected. Additional payment options. So I mentioned how might we finance Duke? I said we have loan officers and we've got a dedicated page to help you compare the types of loans to finance your education over time. But we also partner with a company called Nelnet to do a payment plan that takes what Duke costs in a year, and that's what's on your aid offer. We're showing you the estimate of your annual bill. Only half is due at a time by default. So if you are just waiting, we issue bills in July that are due August 1st. And that's going to be for half of your annual cost. That's going to cover the fall semester. Then we issue other bills in December. That will be for your spring semester. If you'd like to take the entire year and just do 10 even payments, you can sign up for that. It's through Nelnet. It's interest free. There's a small fee for signing up, but then you will just take whatever that amount is that you would be paying out of pocket, and then you could spread that over the course of 10 months without having to go the route of borrowing. You can also consider loans in a parent's name. So rather than student loans, there are also parent loans. The federal government offers one of those. In addition to, you may be eligible to borrow more in federal loans as a student. We'll know more about those types of loans once we're actually able to get FAFSAs and begin processing those later this summer. So this is a lot of information. I know I've covered it, hopefully in fairly short time. This has been recorded, so if you missed any piece of it, feel free to go back and watch. This is our contact information. We really are here to help. This is our main email address, phone number. That's our website. I'd like to note you can go online. Feel free to email us a question that will get to your financial aid counselor. If you need to make an appointment with us, we're happy to do that. We take virtual appointments and those are available online. You can go to our contact us page on that website, schedule an appointment with us. We're happy to talk with you. In addition to the days will be open for campus visitation for recruitment and Blue Devil days later this month. So there's lots of ways to get to know us and get your questions answered, but I'd like to take time to answer a few of these questions live tonight as they're coming through. So I've tried to reserve about 20 minutes. I think I hit my target to do some of this live Q&A. I'm joined by Brian. He's our associate
Hey,
director and manager for our counseling team as the rest of our team continues to work in the Q&A. But Brian, do you have any good questions for me tonight?
I have, yes, and I kept writing down questions and you kept answering them. So you're making this hard on
That's
me.
okay.
But so I think one of the questions I've seen come up multiple times, you talked a little bit about some of the troubles with the FAFSA. And I was just wondering
Yes.
if you could talk a little bit about how the FAFSA how the FAFSA is incorporated, how it impacts the aid students
Yeah.
already received, and things like, if you're getting a Pell Grant, how does the Pell Grant get incorporated into that?
Absolutely. This is really important, and it's a question we've never had to answer before. This was really unusual in the aid world, and you're going to be experiencing this at every college that you're applying to, and they'll be handling it in different ways. This is how Duke handles it. So we use the CSS profile, but we also got your tax information. So if you have an aid offer from Duke and it lists total grants and scholarship, that already includes any federal state aid that you may be eligible to receive. So that is the total amount you can expect from any source to go towards your bill at Duke, because we have a sense of what you're going to qualify for because we have your aid information from another application. What we will do later this summer is once you say yes to Duke and you enroll, we're not able to process FAFSAs now. But when we can process the FAFSAs later this summer, you'll see the sources of those aid. So you're going to get a new aid offer. The total will still add up to what you see today, but we'll be able to list this is how much is part of your Pell Grant. This is how much is part of a state grant. This is how much is coming from Duke. And so we will itemize your aid offer for you, but the total is something that you can trust. That is the total for all sources listed. And so when we get your FAFSA information, that Pell Grant isn't stacking on top of what you see. If you've got a total grants and scholarships offer, that's already included in there. It's not in addition to. Some of you may just have received a loan and work study offer. We don't know what type of loan yet. So your FAFSA results, there are two kinds of federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. We haven't received everyone's FAFSA yet. There's a backlog at the Department of Education. So we don't know the results of your FAFSA. And even the FAFSAs that the department has begun to send, they've sent us error messages on saying that the number that they've given us may change. And so we can't trust it quite yet. So you'll notice a lot of schools are not loading and issuing aid off of a FAFSA at all. Once we can get your FAFSA information, we can tell you exactly what type of loan you'll be eligible to receive and what type of work study. But we have our own institutional work study program. So if you see a work study offer, it's okay if you don't qualify federally. You can still participate in our work study program, which is essentially a job on campus that works around your course schedule. It gets paid directly to you in a paycheck. It's not going towards your Duke bill. It's to help you with a lot of those non-billed costs. And we'll make sure that you get funneled into a work study program one way or another. A very, very small number of you may have completed a FAFSA, and while the CSS profile said you don't qualify for aid from Duke, maybe you're only qualifying for a federal grant. Of course, you can apply that federal grant, even if we didn't give you that estimate on your aid offer because we don't have the FAFSA data to give that to you yet. If it turns out later that you are receiving some federal aid, we'll apply that towards your bill. So some of you might have said, I completed my FAFSA, said I got a Pell Grant, but when I got my aid offer from you, it just said loan and work study. That's okay. We don't have your FAFSA data to be able to process yet, but we would certainly add that. You just wouldn't qualify from need-based aid from Duke if you've already received that aid offer. Another thing that I'd like to address, Brian, that's a little bit tangential
Mhm.
to this question is some of you are probably waiting on aid offers from other schools. You might have Duke's offer, but not all schools are able to issue an aid offer this early because maybe they don't have access to the CSS profile or they may just not have processed that information yet if they do use the profile. As we get closer to our May 1 reply date, so we've asked, hey, let us know if you want to come to Duke by May 1st. We'd love for you to tell us as soon as you're ready. But if you're waiting to compare us with other institutions and we're getting close to that May 1 date, and you still haven't received your aid offer from another school and you're getting need-based aid from us, you do have the opportunity later in the month of April to apply for an extension if you need it. You can tell us who you're waiting to hear from, and then you can apply to us through the admissions portal and say, I'm making an extension and we'll be able to consider those extensions at that time. We're hopeful that you have the information you need to make a confident decision for Duke since you know how much it'll cost to attend here. But we will work with you on an individual basis as we approach that May 1 decision date.
Um, Thank you, Miranda. You actually started to talk a little bit about work study. We've gotten lots of questions
Okay,
about work study.
okay,
And
great.
so, and I know you sort of mentioned it a little bit. Could
Hmm.
you talk a little bit more like how it actually
Sure.
works, and
What
who
is
gets
work study and why do we think it's financial
there
aid? I
you
mean, I
go.
think this is a really fair question.
Yeah.
So the work study program is something that we fund where Either if you're in the federal work study program, the federal government has sent some money to assist, or if you're in the Duke work study program, our aid office will provide some money. But basically, what we do is we go to a campus employer and we say, let's say it's the biology department. You want to work in a lab somewhere and get some experience doing research with a biologist. You can apply for a job that they've posted. And then the aid office comes, you say, I'm a work study student. And that means that instead of hiring you for the full wage rate, we pay a part of that wage so that you are a very competitive candidate for all of these campus jobs because you're receiving work study to be able to subsidize the wage. So it enables a professor to hire a number of students instead of maybe just one student in the job. So you have a competitive edge as you apply for campus jobs as a work study student. And the other thing about it is it's a paycheck to you. So a lot of students are like, well, how am I going to get my books? How am I going to afford those startup costs? How do I fund my day to day while I'm living on campus? It's a paycheck to you. We have competitive wage rates. So if you go and you look at all of the jobs that will be posted over the course of the summer and you want to apply to them, it's a student employment at duke.edu. Once you are enrolled at Duke, you'll have a login. You can get in there. You can look at campus jobs and you let them know you're a work study student. Not only do you have a competitive edge to be hired into those jobs, but then you'll have a paycheck every 2 weeks to help you fund your campus expenses. Your aid offers will offer $2,200 of that. That would have you working usually about 6 hours a week to earn that much over the course. That's not a lot of hours. You can work more than that in most cases. And so we start with that 2,200. But if you're employed somewhere and later in the year you are having a really great experience or you decide that you'd like to work more hours towards that, as you begin to earn that 2,200, if you're eligible to receive more, we will offer that to you. We can continue to work with you. You can't earn more than it costs to go to Duke because it is a need-based program, but the department may be able to keep you on and just pay you out of their full wage rate as well. So that's always a conversation to have with the employer, but don't feel like you are necessarily just limited to that 2,200. We'll let you earn that first, and then if you have remaining eligibility in your cost of attendance, you need to come back to us. We can work with you at that time as well.
Great. Okay. We have obviously we have students that are excited and thinking ahead. So we've had some questions about study abroad and
Uh-huh.
how that
Yeah,
works and how financial
great.
aid and study abroad interplay. So if you could explain a little bit about how that might work.
Absolutely. So the great news is your financial aid travels. And so the amount your family is expected to pay, as long as the program isn't more expensive than Duke. And it's true, Duke is not the least expensive program. And so in most instances, you can take the amount that you're paying to Duke and pay that same amount and go almost anywhere in the world during the academic year. And your aid applies to those programs as well. We have a process. We have Duke sponsored programs that we run as an institution. We have colleges and universities across the world with which we have partnerships and students that have studied abroad in the past. Or maybe you have found an amazing program that we've never had before. You can work with our global education office and they can approve that particular program if it aligns with your academic interests, and your aid can travel to that program as well. And so the amount you pay, what we're saying it costs to attend Duke, anything that happens during the academic year, it transfers as long as the program is not more expensive than Duke, and the amount you pay would be the same anywhere in the world. The other, and we think about that in also in terms of your travel costs. So it's not just the tuition. We're thinking about airfare, we're thinking about food and lodging abroad. All of those factors are considered when we think about the cost of going abroad. Summer abroad is also something that a lot of our students think about. And so students receiving need-based financial aid also have the opportunity to receive financial assistance for up to 2 6-week summer sessions. And that can be here at Duke or that can be abroad. The way that we think about that, a 6-week session is about a quarter of an academic year. And so the amount you pay for the academic year, about a quarter of that is what it would cost you in the summer. And so for some of you who are on our highest levels of financial aid, you may not have any contribution, or if you're part of our Carolinas initiative, which means that those 6-week sessions are free for you. And you can do up to 2 of those, either here or abroad. We also have a campus on the coast of North Carolina at the Marine Lab. And so financial aid is available for those summer periods as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our Duke Engage program. If you're not familiar with it, it also provides the opportunity to do meaningful work in places all over the world, fully funded over the course of a summer as well. And so these are all things to sort of keep in mind as you're considering Duke and other types of institutions. Is we're thinking more broadly, it isn't just the academic year, we're also thinking about your summer opportunities and experiences as well.
Okay. So going back to the application process and the CSS profile. So would you just kind of talk through, I know you talked about the some of the th impacts that you could have from your things to think about in your
Sure.
financially from year to year.
Mhm.
But just reiterate that if the application process, if it's renewable every year, and if a family has a similar level, I mean, should they expect the
Yeah.
similar level of funding through all 4 years when they commit?
Yeah. That's right. So um, I get a question a lot about like, well, what if tuition goes up? Like I'm committing to you now, but what if my financial circumstances are exactly the same every year, but your tuition keeps going up? Is Duke going to be costing me more every year? And the answer to that question is no. As a student receiving a grant and scholarship offer, you're insulated from those changes if your financial circumstances are the same. I mentioned you reapply every year if you're a domestic student, U.S. citizen, or eligible non-citizen. Um, and so for you, that aid offer will fluctuate based on your tax results, right? So as those circumstances change, your aid can go up or down as you renew it each year. But let's imagine that it's pretty much the same year over year, but Duke's tuition and costs go up. The amount you can afford has not changed, right? Your income and your assets, they remain the same. You can't afford more simply because Duke costs more. And we understand that. And the amount expected from you would remain consistent over that time. So you don't have to worry about Duke's costs going up if you're on need-based aid and your financial circumstances have changed. The thing that would make your costs at Duke change would be changes based on the tax information that you submit on an annual basis. We do use the CSS profile, so you do fill that out along with the FAFSA every year. And then whether or not we need your tax information in future years, the FAFSA now gives us a lot of that tax information, so we may not need it from you in future years, but we may ask for it depending. And so we'll always want you to keep an eye on those requests from us so we can get you the best data and get it to you on time so that you can prepare for the year ahead.
Wonderful. Okay. So our team has answered 190 questions and going, and we've had quite a few questions of varying, slightly different, each one about merit scholarships. I know you talked a little bit
Mhm.
about it, and I think it would just be helpful to talk kind of quickly again about the timing of that and sort of the
Mhm.
expectation. And
Sure.
secondarily to that, if you are receiving a need-based award and how
Mhm.
merit might impact that as well.
Sure. Sure. So obviously our focus at Duke has moved to need-based aid. And so we are not offering merit scholarships to students as you are being notified that you're being admitted to Duke. And so no student should make a decision to attend on the hope that they will receive a merit scholarship later. We are a need-based aid offer only institution at the time of admission. And so what you're receiving in need-based aid is what you should make your decision to attend Duke on. There are very, very few merit-based scholarships available later. For students who are notified that they're a merit scholarship recipient, if you're already receiving need-based aid, the same information applies that I showed you sort of in that outside scholarship slide. So if you were here for that, essentially it depends if your merit scholarship is greater than the total grants and scholarships offer, you would receive the amount of the merit scholarship. For some of you, you may already be on full financial aid, in which case the merit scholarship total might not be greater than what you're already receiving. And we would always give you the most aid possible, but you would still have all the benefits of being with a cohort of scholars if you were receiving a named merit scholarship. But the most important takeaway from all of this is we've moved to a need-based model. You should make your decision to attend based on the need-based aid offer that you have right now. And like many of our peers, we're no longer issuing merit scholarships prior to attending. And so we want you to have a very clear sense of what the next 4 years is going to look like for you. And because of that, it's really important to understand that we're not able to answer merit-based questions about what might happen in the future or down the line. And we also would not encourage you at all to make your decision about Duke based on anything related to merit. You are the best in the country already. We know that. It's highly competitive to get in. Congratulations. You've probably seen the stories about the selectivity of what it took to be admitted to Duke. We know that you are excellent. We want you to be a part of this community, and our need-based state offers are there to support those who've applied for aid and qualify. And we would love for you to make your decision to join us based on that information alone.
Wonderful. Well, I know we are almost up at time. I think this is not really a financial aid question, but we've got a lot of people that I think want to watch this again and
Yes.
were asking about the recording. And so you had indicated it would be made available,
It
correct?
will. It will. And so the link to this, I do believe, will be available in your applicant portal once we have time to finish the recording and publish it online. It will be there. I will also say there's nothing I have told you in this presentation that is not on the financialaid.duke.edu website. 100% of this information is available. I know a lot of times people are hesitant. They think the websites aren't very good and that they can't trust the information that they're seeing out there. That's not true at Duke. We work really hard to make sure that the information on our website is up to date. We have pages dedicated specifically to applicants. You likely received an email with a link to that. You can also look at applicant FAQs right on our website. But the information that is out there is robust, it is accurate, and it is something that you can rely on to help inform you. Some of you may be wondering if you have a special circumstance and you're trying to appeal. Well, how might a future year change? We've got cost estimators. A lot of people aren't sure whether or not they can trust those. If you're a W-2 wage earner and you don't have foreign income, they're really accurate. You can go online and get a very good sense, particularly the net price calculator, which is the most detailed of the two, to help you understand how changes in your income may affect your future. So all of that is available to you online. The information that I've covered is, as well as this live recording, so that you can watch it at your leisure. I'd like to think it would be just that popular that we will get a number of rewatches, Brian. I'm not sure how riveting we are,
Absolutely. Yes.
but the information is available as well at any time to access online.
Great. Miranda, I think I am just scanning to see if there's anything you have not covered. I'm going to ask the team real quick if there's any other questions that they want you to address.
Mhm.
Um, Seeing none, they're still feverishly typing away as we speak,
Great.
but
We'll give them
uh,
some time to finish up the questions that are in the chat. I know that there are a number of them, and this happens every year. The chat is usually, or the Q&A is quite active. But I do want to just take a second to say we are thrilled that you're here. And we do hope we are a helpful community for you, that this is a place that you see yourself. We are hoping to see many of you for visitation days that are coming up later this month. And we certainly want to see all of you in the fall. Let us know how we can help along the way. And hopefully this has been helpful for you and transparent for you about how we do aid. And we look forward to getting to meet you in person, hopefully very soon. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.